Hello, everyone, and welcome to a continuation of the Symposium Filaments of the Atlantic Heritage as we bring forward yet another presentation, and this kind of a in-person presentation about sort of, as we say in popular language, tooting your own horn. And I apologize for that, but it is a project of the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute. That's PBBI from Fresno State. I wanted to take the next few minutes. We will have another live session beginning at 11 o'clock. That is California time, Pacific time, or another 3 hours. So 2 o'clock in the afternoon for our friends in the East Coast of both the United States and Canada. And of course, various other time zones of people follow us in the diaspora, our friends in Hawaii, which is still, of course, morning time, early morning time in Hawaii. Thanks to all who follow us. I wanted to talk a little bit about using this symposium, as all of you know, Filaments of the Atlantic Heritage has the theme for this year, and the theme that we want to have some, we've obviously had quite a few guest speakers and quite a few academics and writers and different folks from the creative world. We will end today with something in creativity as well. So today is our last day. We had quite a few hours on Thursday. We had another marathon yesterday, and today we will be ending more or less around 1:30 in the afternoon. At 11 o'clock, so here in about 20 minutes or so, we will be coming back with a session that is a partnered session between us, PBBI from Fresno State, as we carry something that is being presented live in the library in the city of Angra do Heroísmo, which is the sister city to Tulare, and the oldest sister city program in the United States, between a city in the US and a city in the Azores, and one of the oldest in all of Portugal, also with the United States of America. And so the session is actually around the 25 de Abril, the Carnation Revolution. It will be in Portuguese. It is a panel, about an hour and 15 minutes, and it will be about 25 de Abril in Terceira Island. So it's fascinating presentation with three different guests and a moderator. We invite you, those of you who speak Portuguese and those of you who don't, maybe you can turn on the subtitles in a different language. We invite you to be with us starting at 11 o'clock this morning. So our theme for this year for Filaments of the Atlantic Heritage is Atlantic Winds, Pacific Waves, Transoceanic Dialogues on Identity and Culture. And the first session we had this morning with Professor Rosa Simas from the University of the Azores touched upon that in various ways, and thanks to all of you who participated. I'm going to share the screen, and hopefully you'll be able to see it, because I would like for you to look a little bit at some of the projects that we have that are going on at PBBI. That's the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute at California State University, Fresno. We've talked about these before, but I really wanted to share them with you also. So one of the things that we have that is ongoing on a daily basis, as you can see there, hopefully you can, is Novidades, the Islands and the Diaspora. It is put forth by Bruma Publications from the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute at Fresno State. Every day we have at least one news story. As you can see, today's feature is on thousands and thousands of folks who flock to the city of Ponta Delgada in the Azores to attend the yearly festas of Santo Cristo dos Milagres. So we have a story there. The stories are always in English. This story, of course, has our Portuguese American bishop, Bishop Myron Cotta, who is the Bishop of the Diocese of Stockton, who is presiding over the festa and is actually doing a mass in English as well there. And this story was ran in the Diário dos Açores. Our good friend Osvaldo Cabral is director, and of course translated by the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute in collaboration with MCLL, which is the Modern Classical Languages and Cultures Department, and as part of the Bruma Publications, and also part of our ongoing efforts with the Azores Diaspora Media Alliance. And this story actually has the sponsorship of the Luso Financial. We've partnered up with Luso Financial they'll be sponsoring about 3 to 4 stories per week here on Novidades. So, but this is just a story from today. We have different stories. They're always updated. And as if you go there, you'll be able to see there's yesterday, May 3rd, we actually had one story as well about Santa Maria Island. On May the 2nd, we had one story about Azores Airlines. On May the 1st, we actually had 3 different stories. As you can see, this wonderful human interest story about barber Rodrigo Rebelo, who took onto the streets of Ponta Delgada in São Miguel to cut the hair and the beards of the homeless. There are over 300 homeless in the city of Ponta Delgada, unfortunately. And talking about different aspects, also about the Base das Lajes, the airbase in Terceira Island, about the book 50 Years of April, Democracy and Autonomy, for the director of Azorian Communities, José Andrade, who opened up our sessions at this edition of Filamentos Herança Atlântica. And then you see all kinds of different stories every day. There's at least one. Some days you can see, like on April 29th, we had 2. Some days, like on April 28th, also a couple of them. Some days we have 3. Some days we have 2, 1. But there's at least one story, usually about the Azores or Madeira, so the islands, and the diaspora, also about our community here every single day. That is part of Novidades. It's an effort to reach 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generations, those who may no longer speak, of course, Portuguese. We take these stories. The other one is called Filamentos, Artes e Letras, Arts and Letters in the Azorian diaspora. And we also have diasporas. Of course, we deal also always with Madeira and even mainland Portugal, of course, but very, very much into the Azores. And this one is bilingual. So some stories are in English, such as this one of our guests that we had on this edition of our symposium, Filamentos Herança Atlântica, was Diogo Urique. His book is now translated to English. Bruma Publications was part of it thanks to an accord that we have with Letras Lavadas in the island of São Miguel. And it is called Let Me Out of This Book. It's a very interesting, different book, kind of in that genre of terror. Not something that's not usually very, I should say, traditional in the Azores. I think it's becoming more and more popular all over the world. We have some great American and some great English language writers that have done this genre of literature. And Diogo Urique took this on. It's called in English, Let Me Out of This Book. Again, it's been published. It's an excellent interview between him, there it is, Diogo Urique, and conducted by the most respected literary critic in the Azores and one of the most respected in all of Portugal and in all of the Portuguese-speaking world, which is my very good friend Humberto Freitas. Humberto has done an amazing job, amazing in literary criticism, and the writers in the Azores owe a lot to Humberto. So this is one of the stories. There are many on Filamentos. Filamentos may not have a daily session, but we try to have one story per day. Sometimes we'll go a day or 2 without a story, and then we'll have like 3 days. It's a literary magazine, it's a literary platform. So we're not, of course, bound to have something every day. This is a text dedicated to the poet Alamo Oliveira. This one is in Portuguese because Filamentos has texts in Portuguese and in English. So we have writings in both language. This is to commemorate his 79th birthday. He just commemorated that on the 2nd day of this month of May. And so this is a talk, this is a paper that actually a bit of a writing that I did about Alamu for his 75th, and here it is, updated for his 79th birthday. So Alamu Oliveira, a widely known, very, very widely known poet and writer from the archipelago of the Azores. Here's something on Alfred Lewis, who also just commemorated a birthday, would have commemorated. Alfred has passed in 1977, but was born in the April 30th of 1902, so 122nd birthday. And this was part of the Alfred Lewis reading series that I co-moderate, co-curate with poet Rosangelina Batista. Rose is an excellent poet living in Florida. So lots of different things. Also, again, in both languages, again, both in Portuguese and English, our segment dedicated to Natalia Correia. This is a weekly segment that we do every single week, so be in tune for that. A segment that we also do called The 10th Island, which is writings by José Andrade, translated from Portuguese to English. Once again, this one actually was not of the 10th Island. It was an interview that he did. This one's in Portuguese, but we do a segment with him on the 10th Island. A little bit about Olhos nos Livros, which is our segment that we do every week. This one done by José Luís da Silva, about one of the books that was published here. And so we have lots of different things. Filamentos is an ongoing event here at PBBI. Here's the 10th Island segment by José Andrade. Also, as I said, also this one is his columns that he writes, or some of his writings that he's done about the Azorean communities. These are translated into English, so these are in English. And we have, of course, an extensive program that we do also once a week on the Carnation Revolution that we'll be continuing to do every single week this year. We'll take a story and also translate it on the Carnation Revolution as well. Some of these stories are also have the patronage or the sponsorship of the Luso-American Financial as well. Some of these have their financial support. We appreciate the Luso-America Financial, Luso-American Fraternal for being a sponsor of Novidades, at least 4 stories per year. I mean, per week, at least 4 stories per week. We've been doing more than 4. We usually have at least 5 or 6 stories that are sponsored by Luso-America, and at least 1 per week or 2 that are also sponsored by Luso-America here, talking about their upcoming event on Filamentos as well. And so this one is dedicated to arts and letters in the diaspora. The Novidades, the islands in the diaspora, is news about the Azores and Madeira, and also about our diasporas here in California, basically in California, or sometimes the west coast of the United States. And then I wanted to share, lastly, if you go to Google Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute, this is the College of Arts and Humanities, and where we are part of 3 colleges. There they have a page dedicated to PBBI. And if you look under Bruma Publications, first of all, if you look under Filamentos or Novidades, it'll take you to those pages that I mentioned to you, those platforms. And if you look under the Bruma Publications, you can click on that, and that will take you to an ongoing story that's on Filamentos, but that you can order our books. So here they are. There's the information, how much they cost, where you send your checks, where you make your checks to, Fresno State Foundation, send it to Bruma Publications in care of myself, MCLL, Peters Building, Office 393, and there's the address, Fresno, California, with the zip code. Please allow around 3 to 3.5 weeks for shipping and handling, and you'll be getting your books in the mail. Okay, so those are our books. We're very proud of the work that Bruma Publications, which was set up during the pandemic. We actually announced it in 2021 with a wonderful talk that is in our YouTube channel by Professor Onésimo Teotonio Almeida. And then, of course, we had to legalize it, work with all the different entities within the university. That it took another semester and a half. And then in September of 2022, so not quite 2 years ago, we published our first book. And our first book was published in September of 2022. And I'm going past really quick through here because I want to show you, this was our first book, Contos Populares Portugueses, Portuguese Folk Tales in California, published in September of 2022, a collection done by Manuel da Costa Fontes. The stories, the folk tales, are in Portuguese with a synopsis next to it in English. So you can order this book from us. It's $24. It includes postage and handling, and it can go directly to your home. That was our first book. Since then, of course, we've done quite a few. We've done this one here, which was done by myself, Into the Azorean Sea. It's a bilingual anthology of Azorean poetry. Over 100 poets are present from the Azores, translated to English, from the Americas, translated from North America, translated to Portuguese, all with roots in the Azores. It costs $24. Checks made to Fresno State Foundation. Then we also did a book that has been doing very quite well. They're all doing the best they can, but this one is by Luís Mendonça that I translated to Portuguese, History of the Azores, Questions and Answers. It's a wonderful book that Professor Luís Mendonça put forth from his research. So there are basically 70 questions and 70 answers about the history of the Azores, if you're curious about that, especially those who have roots there. Many times people think that you're an Azorean if you go to a festival once a year. And that's great. And thanks to all of you who support our events. But there's a bit more than that. And a lot of times, unfortunately, if we don't know, then there's lots of different fallacies that I see on a daily basis, unfortunately, on Facebook. Such as the other day, someone saying that the Festas do Espírito Santo was a 14th century tradition in the Azores that was started in the Azores by Queen Isabel. Indeed, Queen Isabel, Rainha Santa, the wife of Dom Dinis, is known to be the initiator of the Festas, but she did not live in the 14th century. The Azores, when she lived, the Azores weren't even discovered. She died in the early 1300s, and the Azores were discovered in 1423. So sometimes there's a little bit of fallacy within our own community. We listen to these stories, we think they're gospel, and they're not. So a good way is obviously by reading. Jennifer, or a French Princess, is one of our new. It's our first work of fiction that we've translated and published by Letras Lavadas and Bruma Publications. A very short novel of around 70 pages, novella by Joel Neto, translated by myself and Catherine Vash. Then I just spoken about the history of the Azores. Between Words, Selected Poetry of Vera Duarte is a wonderful book of Vera's poetry, selected poems in English, and she is from the island nation of Cabo Verde. Wonderful poetry. Alan Oliveira, who we spoke about just a little while ago. We also did a selection of his poetry, and only in English. It's called Through the Walls of Solitude, wonderful poetry dealing with immigration. Calligraphy of Birds, we have actually two books. We have this one by Angela de Almeida. This one was done with Nona Poesia, one side in Portuguese, one side in English, so it's a bilingual book. And then we have another one. Let me show you real quick. This one right here, only in English, by Angela Almeida, and you can order it as well. And this is Calligraphy of Birds, one of her great books of poetry translated into English. And then we have Inner Snow, which is a wonderful book. Poet Alberto Pereira from mainland Portugal was just here with Angela de Almeida at Fresno State, and this is his book, Inner Snow, Neve Interior, translated into English as well, doing quite well as well, and we appreciate it. If you want to know, if you want to take a dive into some of the best Portuguese contemporary poetry, I should say, please do read Inner Snow by Alberto Pereira. We also have another great poet from mainland Portugal, again with Letras Lavadas, all of these, and that is José Pedro Leite. Luisa Mira Correia and myself translated this book. It's called Rising of the Shadows. The book won the literary prize, a very prestigious literary prize, Natalia Correia, and now we have it in English. Again, some of the best contemporary poetry in mainland Portugal. Again, Calligraphy of the Birds, only in English, by Angela de Almeida. This one coming out actually this week as we speak. Coming out, I should say, next week, sometime around the 10th of May, between the 10th and the 15th. Misty Paths, it's selected poems from Pedro da Silveira, a lot of poems dealing with immigration, a lot of poems dealing with the diaspora, a collection of poems from Pedro da Silveira called Misty Paths, being published this week in the islands of the Azores. Will be available soon. This one's not available yet. It will be available soon. Also already published just a few weeks ago out in the Azores, but will be available soon here in the United States, is Let Me Out of This Book that I spoke recently, the one piece that was done on our literary magazine, literary platform, by Diogo Uric, translated into English, published by Letras Lavadas with a collaboration of Bruma Publications. Really, very good writing by Diogo Uric. And again, for one of the reasons why we wanted to be involved with this project, of Let Me Out of This book, this translation, and bringing it to the United States, to California, is to show, especially our young Azorians, those who are American but of Azorian ancestry, whether it's their parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents that came over, or even great-great-grandparents, that there's lots of creativity. This is in the genre of terror, so it's in that genre. If you read that in English, you'll want to know how in the Azores this genre is also being utilized, not much, but very much by this wonderful writer, young man, 32 years old. He was about I think around 26, 27 when the book was first published in Portuguese, and now in English. Diogo Rick, Let Me Out of This book. Again, this is Bruma Publications by PBBI at Fresno State. We thank you all for joining us. We thank you all for being part of PBBI. Our semester is ending at Fresno State here very, very shortly, in a little over a week. But our work at PBBI, at the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute, will continue. We look forward to publishing another 2 books this summer, and we look forward to publishing hopefully, another 2 books in the fall of 2023 as well. In the last 20 plus months, not quite 24 months. It'll be 2 years in September. So by September, we have had published 14 different books in 2 years. That's 7 books per year. That's really overzealous in a lot of ways. We know that we'll not be able to continue with this at this rhythm. We will probably, after this year, slow down a little bit, but we'll still want to publish anywhere between 4 to 5 books per year. And if we have, obviously, the books and they're good quality and they mean something to our community, as we think these are meaningful, then and we have the financial support, then we'll be more than happy to publish more if we can. But we're going to try to continue at least with 4 to 5 different books per year. I believe having already 14 published in 2 years is an achievement. Thanks to all of your support, thanks to those who read the books, thanks to Letras Lavadas in São Miguel for working with us, thanks to the University Press at California State University, Fresno, thanks to all of our friends here at Bruma Publications and everyone at the university as well. Thank you all for joining us. This is the Filaments of the Atlantic Heritage, the symposium that continues to be a tradition as at PBBI Fresno State, now online. This year, Ventos do Atlântico, Ondas do Pacífico, Diálogos Transoceânicos sobre Identidade e Cultura, in English, Transoceanic Dialogues on Identity and Culture, with the title Atlantic Winds, Pacific Waves. We will be joining you again in just a few minutes with a live presentation coming from the island of Terceira, the library in the city of Angra. This is the Symposium Filaments of the Atlantic Heritage, and we are the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute at California State University, Fresno. Thank you all for joining us, and continue with us as we have this live presentation coming up in just a few minutes from, as I said, the city of Angra, the library, and then after that presentation, we will have a musical presentation featuring the 15-string guitar. It's done by Michael Vieira and David Santos. That will be right after the presentation from the city of Angra. So somewhere around between 12:15 and 12:30, that will be a full hour presentation with music and information, so we can end this edition of Filamentos da Herança Atlântica, Filaments of the Atlantic Heritage from PBBI at Fresno State. We thank our sponsors for this year, as always, the Luso-American Development Foundation, that's FLAD. We also thank which FLAD sponsors an array of our projects, our speaker series, and our oral history projects, including our documentaries, are all sponsored by FLAD. We thank also the Luso-American Education Foundation for this year being also a sponsor of Filamentos da Herança Atlântica. And we also thank this year the California Portuguese American Coalition, CPAC, for also being a sponsor of Filaments of the Atlantic Heritage, as we do these transoceanic dialogues on identity and culture between California, the west coast of the United States, and the Azores Islands. And Filaments of the Atlantic Heritage was a symposium that was actually in person in Tulare, California, between the years of 1990 and 2002, and now online since 2021. We'll be back soon, just a couple of minutes, to continue our symposium, Filaments of the Atlantic Heritage from PBBI at California State University, Fresno.